All right. Well, welcome to our next episode of Leveraging Your Voice, my podcast where I invite guests on to tell us a little bit about their business and we can get to know a little bit about them and the people they serve and how they serve them. And today we have a special guest here. Dr. Mike, can you just talk a little bit about yourself? Introduce yourself and tell us where you're at and who you serve and what you do for them.
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me. My name is Dr. Mike DeCubellis. I'm a chiropractor, and I'm in a Chicago suburb, Downers Grove, Illinois. And what I do is we focus primarily on those who have been in personal injury cases, car accidents, slip and falls, chronic complex types of cases. And we've been doing this for a couple of years. And I really got into this last couple of years. I've been training at the Jacobs School of Medicine, which is a medical school in Buffalo, New York. Because of that, I've made sure that I've gotten more credentials to be able to not only understand these cases better, but to work on them and also help assist the attorneys to work as more of an expert. So we do a lot of expert work, whether that be working on the case itself, doing the exams and treatment, or being an expert witness or writing expert reports. And the goal is just to make sure that everyone understands what's going on and gets the type of treatment that they need as well.
Awesome. Now that's an interesting area that you're in. Now you said you're in the Chicago area, and Chicagoland's a big area. I mean, are you like sitting right downtown, or how far are you from all the wonders of downtown?
Yeah, so we're about 35-40 minutes from downtown, depending on the traffic in Downers Grove. But the nice thing is Downers Grove does have an express train where you get in 30 minutes with no stops. So that's kind of nice too.
So that's cool. So if you have to go downtown, you don't even have to drive and go through all the, I know they never have construction on the roads in Chicago, right? Am I right?
Right. Oh, never.
I did a lot of work in Chicago over the years, and it was amazing. No matter when you went there, no matter what road you were on, it was always under construction.
Yep, exactly.
So having that train's a good deal for you.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. Now, you've been a chiropractor for how many years?
For about 15 years.
All right. Where'd you go to school at?
So I went to school at Palmer, Florida, down in like the Orlando area.
What was unique about that?
It was unique because that school, it was a newer school when I first started going there, and they were working with the Davenport campus to try to create a different kind of curriculum. Like we worked on quarters, not on trimesters. And they didn't focus as much on philosophy as they did more of the research and stuff.
Okay. Is going to school at that site part of what got you into PI, or are the two separate?
Two are pretty separate. I like to go there because I lived in Florida most of my life and went to University of Florida. So it was nice to be able to stay relatively close to home.
All right. How'd you go from Florida to Chicagoland for then your business?
You know, once I graduated from chiropractic school, since I had lived in Florida all my life, I wanted to kind of get out and see the seasons and see what else is out there. And I interviewed pretty much across the whole country and found a place in Downers Grove that was hiring. A guy had owned about 5-6 offices, and he was looking to open another one and hired me to come in and be the clinic director and run everything. So I really liked that. I liked the where he was going in his plans. Fortunately or unfortunately, 6 months in, he walked in and decided he was going to close the doors and just said, "You can take over if you want to." And I'm still here 15 years later. So
awesome. Well, you're certainly seeing all the seasons in Chicago.
Yes.
I'm in Michigan, so I love all the seasons myself. And people complain about snow, but I love the winter too. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of a fan of the whole thing. Is that where you're at, or are you missing the heat in Florida even in the wintertime?
You know, we get enough heat up here. The only time I would miss it is if you're on the beach. But I think my favorite time, especially up here, is fall. I just love the fall.
It's a beautiful season. Awesome. All right. So PI, personal injury.
Yep.
So just talk to us a little bit about what it means, personal injury. Is that like I stubbed my toe on my chair, or are you in something a little different than that?
Not quite. So personal injury is when someone is typically involved in a car accident. And usually we're going to work with the people who were not at fault. So they were injured by someone else. So they would then hire an attorney to help get them money to cover their medical bills and anything, get their car fixed and any other issues that come up. So we work from the treating side, and it's really, really important that we make sure we go through and very accurately diagnose everything, talk about causation, link things together, do treatment plans that make sense, and things that everything that we do, we have to be able to back up in court too. So we have to be pretty thorough.
It's really interesting. It's a little different than, say, a chiropractor who's doing, I don't know how I would say, I'll say non-PI work. Comparing what you might do with a non-PI work client versus that kind of client, is there more paperwork in it? I mean, I would think intentionally there's more paperwork if you know you're going to court with this, that, and the other thing. Is that making sense what I'm thinking in my head, or am I off?
Yeah, you're 100% right. There's a lot more paperwork involved. There's just a lot more work involved. But the thing is, you can't go back and do the work 6 months later when you find out it's going to court. So you have to start from the beginning and just kind of plan as if every single time you're treating a PI case, you're going to have to do a deposition, you're going to have to testify. So that's kind of how we do it. And then the way that we have it set in our office is we treat every patient the same. Obviously, if someone has more injuries or a more severe type of injury, they're going to need more for us to look at. They might need longer treatment. It just depends. But we try to treat everyone the same, where, if there was an office who wasn't doing chronic, complex, or injury type stuff, they might not have to do the same due diligence that we do.
In creating the paperwork, the documentation associated with a PI case, is there something from the courts that says this is the way you do that? Is there something from the medical field that says this is the way you do that? Or did you just create your own method to do that and it's turned out to work? How did that come to be, and where's it from?
So that's a great question. And there actually are standards that need to be met. So I created some myself. I've worked with some colleagues as well, and then my teachers and trainers from from everything that I've been learning over the last couple of years. We put together something to kind of make sure we're checking all those boxes, because nowadays, honestly, it's little things that can come out when you go to court, and something too. It's like, as little as taking blood pressure. If someone comes in, they've got high blood pressure, you didn't take it, and then they have a heart attack or a stroke while they're in your office. That's considered a standard of care to check blood pressure. And if you didn't do it, you could become liable for it. So we just want to make sure that we're making sure we're checking all of the boxes and doing everything we need to do. That way, again, when we're under hyper scrutiny at court, we're not going to have anything to worry about.
Now, you mentioned those requirements are generated from somewhere, from some standards body. Who is that?
It's the chiropractic board. I mean, and that's really who governs it. And they have things that have to be done and things that should be done. I know there's a lot of docs who don't do them. But listen, I decided to do it on, again, all my patients, because it only takes one time for someone to have an issue, and then they'll look back at all your records. And if you weren't doing it on anyone, now we have a problem, and that's where you can get a licensure issue. So again, I just look at it like, yes, it's going to take more time, and it's a lot of work to treat every patient with that much type of attention, but it really should be the standard of care.
Now, what got you said you've been doing this for a couple of years, which means you've been in that office for over a decade, not doing that work. So was there an event in life that caused you to think, hey, I'm getting into this PI thing? What led you there? What was your story behind getting into it?
I had always done it a little bit here and there, but again, I didn't have a lot of the credentials or training to be able to do it. So I just started trying to figure out, why is it that people who have these types of injuries, why are they taking longer to heal? Why do they require different types of treatments? And then how can I make it so I can better not only understand, but better document and explain these things to, attorneys or other doctors or the patient themselves. So that's when I really started doing my training. And it also is very interesting to me. It's one thing when someone comes in and they have, a very easy to understand issue, and it heals within, a month. That's one thing. But I really wanted to make sure I could take care of the people who had more complex type issues, because they might have gone to many other doctors. No one understands what's going on. No one can tell them why they're still having pain. They went through treatment, they didn't get any better. So I wanted to have an avenue to be able to really work with them, but also be able to find out what really is going on, and give them kind of the best way to get more information. That way, even if they don't continue in my office, at least they're better off because we've gotten them some answers.
Awesome. Now, you had mentioned as we chatted before we started the podcast that you also did some training recently that may be finished or you may be finishing up, connected like to medical something or other. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about that and talk about why you did that and how it applies to what you do in your office? Does it make you a medical doctor?
No, it doesn't make me a medical doctor, but we're right up there, if not actually more credentialed than 90% of the medical doctors out there. So the last couple of years, I've been training at the Jacobs School of Medicine in SUNY Buffalo, New York, and I've been getting different credentials like MRI interpretation qualified, primary spine care qualified, evaluation and management qualified, hospital qualified, and the list just goes on. But recently, as of a couple of months ago, I actually just finished my fellowship in primary spine care. One of about 25 docs in the whole country that has that. And the reason I wanted to do it is because, especially when you work in the PI realm, a lot of times if you don't have these credentials, you're just viewed as a chiropractor, and they don't really look at you as any higher than a PT or sometimes even a massage therapist with you because you don't have these other credentials that a medical doctor will. But now, since I've gotten these credentials and I've been training at the medical school themselves in these post-doctoral training courses, I have more credentials to be able to working with these types of patients than an MD does or a DO does, that just has their typical MD DO degree. So what it's allowed me to do is work with attorneys to where not only can I be a treating doc, but I can be an expert witness. I can write expert reports. I can go in there and do expert testimony. So I don't have to just be a treater anymore. And what I found that's really, really helpful is because a lot of times when it comes to treatment itself, it doesn't necessarily matter who does the specific treatment. What matters is who did the exam and came up with the treatment plan, because that's the person who really has all the, emphasis put on them, and that's the one who really has to back everything up. So I've been able to kind of work with different attorneys who have clients in other areas, go and be able to do an exam or just look at the reports and the medical records that they already have and help kind of advise them on, hey, if this was my patient, this is what I would do, or I think this person needs this, or maybe they need to go here, or put together a report that ties all of those medical records together with the actual injury and the outcome measures. So it's easier to understand. Because that's kind of the goal, is not only helping get people better, but making sure the attorneys and the judge and jury can understand what's actually going on in a way that makes sense, instead of just trying to throw a bunch of research at them that's going to go over everyone's head and it's not going to make any sense.
Did you, with this line of work, did you reach out to lawyers to make them your client base, or did you reach out to the end consumer who might be in an accident? Who did you target there? One or both?
More the attorneys, because the attorneys are the ones who really can see the value in what I do, because they need experts to be on the case. Now, not every case is going to go to trial, but the ones that do, there's a lot of potential money on the line. So they want to make sure they have people that they can know and trust, and who have the educational background to be able to pass a Daubert hearing or a voir dire, so that way they can actually go up there and opine on the stand, and it's not going to be, okay, this person doesn't have the credentials to be able to make this statement or opinion. And the real big thing is with doing everything that I've been doing, I'm also part of a research community that puts out new research. I just had 2 research articles published in the last couple of months. So with all of that, it just, again, helps kind of give the attorneys like leverage to say, hey, yeah, this doc is probably going to be more valuable for us to work with than another doc. So showing them these different things that we do is really kind of the best way, because also they're not going to need me on a case that is just, there's no real injuries. The person wasn't really injured. It's just their car dented. They don't need to have an expert involved in that. But it's the really big cases that they're spending a ton of time and money on themselves that they want to have someone like me involved in. So yeah, going out and talking with them, letting them know that, hey, this is what I do, and this is and I exist, and these are my credentials. Because again, there are very, very few of us out there. Hopefully that changes in the next couple of years. That's part of what we're doing, is trying to get more people to understand and get the same type of credentials. Because once we do that, chiropractic is going to be kind of the most sought after profession when it comes to personal injury or just normal chronic stuff. because that's what the research is showing, but we got to get more people credentialed to really kind of create that movement.
We'll send this to all of the lawyers in all of the places. Now, I say all the places because I could just say in Chicagoland, but I think you probably provide some of these services remotely to people not from you, where you might not be the, what do you call it, the care, the actual, yes, the treating doctor, but you're doing some other part. How would that work? And does that happen to you?
Yeah. So two things that we'll do is, first of all, a lot of times attorneys will just call and ask me a question. And I don't charge to answer questions because I want to try to help them out. Because there's no way that they're going to know everything that's going on in medical research. Their job is to follow everything that's been going on in the legal community. So they might say, hey, doc, what do you think about this? Or I've got this client and this is what's been going on. What do you think? Is this a case? Is there something there? Am I wasting my time? Or they might say, hey, you know what? I've got all of these reports and medical records, but they're all just like everywhere. I need someone to connect these. Can you write a report based on all of these medicals, talking about how we have causation, how we know that, and going from there. So I really work with them two ways. I'll do those reports if they need those expert reports. I can do expert testimony. And then also on the other end, if they just have questions on like, hey, what do I have here? Am I wasting my time? Or should I get them to another a specialist? I help them that way too.
So you're going to send this podcast episode out to all of them, or invite them to your Google page where you have, what, 300 some videos or something?
Yeah, we've got over 300 videos on the YouTube page, and we keep putting out more.
Awesome. This will be a new one that tells your story. I love it.
Yep.
How many times have you been in court on the stand?
So I've been on the stand only about 2 or 3 times. Now I've done way more depositions. Typically what happens though is with the deposition, once the other side kind of hears what I'm saying and they can't refute me as just a chiropractor, usually it helps speed along a settlement offer from there. So we don't have to go to court too often. And especially now in the Chicago area, still we're starting to get back to in person, but there's still a lot of remote stuff. So I've done some of those remote. I don't really, it's not the same as being in person testifying, but I've testified remotely as well too. But yeah, so not a ton, because the depositions usually is where we kind of go from there, but I've done it before and I have no problem doing it.
Well, the lawyers say never ask a question you don't know the answer to. But I'm going to ask this question because I'm not a lawyer. How did those cases go where you were on the stand?
They went really well. One thing that I always try to do when I'm on there is explain exactly what's going on in a way that the jury or the judge, if that's who's presiding over it, can really understand. And it's interesting that like the most recent time I was on actually on the stand, they didn't really have many questions for me about myself, my background, or my exam or my treatment. They're all questions were about another treating doc. Unfortunately, this person had went to a chiropractor before me who wasn't credentialed, and their treatment plan made absolutely no sense. So he was just basically just wanted me to read his notes. So I was like, okay, it's a little bit of a waste, but we'll go ahead and do that.
Okay. I love it. Now, being in the role you're in, if I'm a client, if I'm an end client, a person who needs help because I was in an accident, and I'm working with an attorney and my attorney sends me to you and I'm working with you, I would think based on all of your background and all that sort of stuff, I as an end client would then think to myself, well, at least I'm in good hands. I'm not paying you as an end client in that situation, am I?
No. So we work exclusively on liens.
That's what I want you to talk to me about. How is it that I'm your client, or am I the attorney's client, or who are you working for when I'm in the office under your care?
So I'm still working for that individual and I'm doing what's best for them. However, I work hand in hand with the attorney and on any other doctors that are involved in the case, because I want to make sure we're all on the same page and we know what's going on. Now, the end goal, though, is that you have the attorney so that way you're not going to have to pay your medical bills at the end, which again is why it's so important for me to work with the attorney so our bills can get paid, because we, again, have to validate everything. If we were to do something and there was no reason for it and we just did it to do it, we're not going to get paid, and then we're not going to be able to go after the client for it either, because we're not going to have any kind of ruling in our favor. So we want to make sure that we're doing everything that's best for the client, making sure they're getting the right diagnosis and the right treatment, but you can't do anything over treatment or over diagnosing or any of that stuff either, because it's going to be found out and it's not going to look good. And then again, the attorney's not going to want to work with you. The client's not happy. So whole thing is that we want to make sure we're doing best for the client, but we work hand in hand with the attorney as well.
It's a group effort at that point.
Yep.
All right. So now I'm in Chicagoland area. What town are you in again?
Downers Grove.
Downers Grove. I was going to say Downers Grove. And I'm not a PI patient, but I am a potential chiropractic patient. I have some issues that are chronic, different ways that you might describe that. And I want to come in and see what's my experience. Where am I showing up? And then what's my experience when I get there? And am I going to feel the love of Dr. Mike when I walk in the door?
Yeah, definitely. We don't exclusively do PI. We work with a lot of patients too who have chronic, complex, or just in a lot of pain. And they're going to get more elite type service at our place than they're going to get elsewhere. We're going to spend the same amount of time. We're going to go through and do everything we need to do. Typically, when new patients come in, we're going to start with paperwork. We're going to talk with them. And I mean, they're usually in our office for at least 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how many things we've got to go over. But we want to make sure we test everything. Like I had a patient the other day came in, he's like, oh, I just have some low back pain. It's been here for 6 months. We tested and he didn't even realize that his reflexes were completely gone. Didn't even notice, because how often are you checking your own reflexes? But to me, that also tells that we've got a neurological component, and it tells me where we need to start looking to find what's going on underneath. So it's important to check all these different things, check the range of motion, check the blood pressure, check the sensory dermatomes. Like we look at all these things because it tells us, again, how many areas are involved, how severe it is. And then when we put these things together, it tells me what type of imaging we need to do. Do we need to do x-rays? Do we need to start talking about an MRI? We put all this stuff together, but that's what tells me that we know that we're on the right track. We know exactly what we're working with. And then if it's something that I can help them with, or I need to refer them out. So when someone comes in, they're going to get the best type of exam and treatment they're going to need. And they're going to get all the answers on day one too. We're going to go over everything I'll tell them. And if I need more time to go over it, I'm going to tell them. I always like to be very open and honest with patients because that's what I would expect if I was a patient too.
Awesome. Sounds like a great experience. Now, you're not the only person there in the office.
No.
All right. So they're going to see some other people at the front desk and helping and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, we've got a couple of different people who work here, a dedicated front desk person who will greet them when they come in, answer the phone, make sure that they get all the paperwork that they need and answer any immediate questions. They'll see me during the exam and with treatments, and then we've got a therapy assistant as well. And then we've got someone who kind of works as like a little liaison between different places, and she'll come in and help out as too and make sure that patients are getting the right kind of experience too. She's kind of like an experience coordinator, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. All right, excellent. Talk to me a little bit about where we can find you, say on social media, different things like that, just website. What would somebody do to look you up and find you and see what you're doing?
So the easiest, I mean, if you really just want to look up, if you Google my name, I pop up pretty much everywhere. We've got a YouTube account. It's Dr. DeCubellis on YouTube. You can search me up that way. We've got social media. The website is chiropracticdownersgrove.com. I make it pretty easy to be able to find and answer questions. We take online appointments right from our website. Our phone number, you can always call and ask questions too. We want to try to make it as easy as possible for someone to get in touch with us, whether that be for just a question or to make an appointment.
Awesome. Now, when we're done here, you're going to send me some of those links. And then when we post this, we'll put that right in the comments or right in the post itself so people can just click and get to where they need to get to.
Perfect.
Okay. Dr. Mike, anything else you want to talk to us about today? I know we talked about a lot of different things and you shared a lot about what you do, and it's unique and it's different and it's kind of really interesting. So what else? Is there anything else we missed that you just want to share, or what you might leave us with if not?
You know, we did talk about a lot of stuff, and the biggest thing I always like to impart with people is that I always try to give them some more knowledge so that they can ask better questions. because the questions are really what you want to ask when it comes to hiring an attorney or hiring a doctor and going there, and just ask those questions. And I always like to be upfront and honest with people because I'm not the best fit for everyone, but I always make it to where even if we can't help them, I want to at least point them in the right direction. So ask questions, don't be afraid. And you know what? The thing is, just like any other profession, there's better and there's the best and there's different quality. So, look around, ask questions, especially if you have specific issues that you need resolved or you have questions about, there might be a specialist designed for that. Just like if you have a nerve issue, you'd go to a neurologist, you wouldn't go to a podiatrist. While the podiatrist is still qualified, they're not qualified in helping you with your specific issue. So just keep that in mind. And like I said, just ask questions.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, this podcast, Leveraging Your Voice, we bring guests on like yourself, and we hope that they have, during their visit here with us, the chance to leverage their voice and share their mission and service. Do you feel like you had a chance to do that?
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, then we did our part. We're all happy. I love it. All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Mike, for joining us today. Wish you continued success. PI, very interesting thing. Oh, I had one more question.
Mm-hmm.
Look, there's so many TV shows about doctors and medicine and lawyers and all that stuff. So I got to ask you, which TV show is most like your life?
Oh, that's a good question. I'd almost say none of them. Because most of them are, when we look at it from the medical perspective, it's a lot of blood and gore and stuff, and we don't deal with that. And then a lot of the stuff you see with attorneys, it's usually more like corporate cases they find interesting of putting up there. So unfortunately, none of them, but that could be a good idea for a new series.
So you and we're going to have to work on picking one, even if it's not even close, and just say that's the one.
All right, sounds good.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Dr. Mike. Thank you, folks, for watching today. I am your host here, Paul Rakowitz, and I am a vocal coach for speakers, so I help people speak with confidence. So if you are interested in learning more about what I do, you can go to my website, prvocalcoaching.com. For Dr. Mike, we will put his website and different social media platforms in the post itself, so you'll be able to click a link and get to him. So with that said, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you always being with us, and we look forward to the next time. Bye for now.